Latia, Ijijuzi Witike, Mashte Ponca, Oklahoma. Wahe Tamajikte Atinike Ganke Giza Te Ati Wivaha E. Judy is my Ponca name. I'm in the occupied territory of Oklahoma, where our Lenape relatives were also removed to some years back. There's 39 federally recognized tribes here. I live in the occupied territory of the Wichita peoples who were here long before we were, until our forced removal in 1877. I told you that I've been looking forward to this moment, and I'm grateful to be here, and thank you for allowing me to be here. Chief Mann, your words are powerful. I honor your leadership, and I'm grateful to be called your aunt. Dimi. Dimi is the word for aunt in our language. So, Dimi Wiwita, you could call me that. I have taken some notes here and been trying to think how to assimilate the words to put to you. If you've seen the Condor and the Eagle, you've also seen the devastation of where our people live as well, where the Ponca live as well. Our original territory is Nebraska or Nebraska and South Dakota. We were disenfranchised by a quote and unquote mistake that the federal government made. And there's no mistakes that they made. The Bureau of Indian Affairs was incepted under the War Department, and they've continued to act from that position from 500 years ago when they first became guests in Lenape territory and in the territory of the tribes that they wiped out. We have been diminished from over 500 million to just over 1 million now that we're building back to across Turtle Island or North America. We have been systematically dispossessed of our land base, of what they call resources and we call sources of life. But yet at this time, when we are the frontline communities on the fight against fossil fuel and what they're doing to our peoples and the sacredness of all living things, people have turned again to the indigenous wisdom to show a way forward, because we remember, we have the cellular understandings and relationship with our mother, the earth, with our father, the sky, with the sacred waters, and with all living beings. And we haven't forgotten. And so at times like this, when it used to be just professors, so wait, I got to tell you my joke first. So I was on a panel one time and I was with all of you guys that have all the initials after your names, right? You know, your PhDs, your da, right? And so I introduced myself as a graduate of MIT, and that's matriarch in training.
That's great.
Yeah, because I am that. I come from a line of matriarchs. That's how I became the Drumkeeper for the Women's Society, the only existing women's society, as that was passed down through my mothers and grandmothers, through all of the rapes and the murders and the abuse that they endured in boarding schools and forced removals, now in man camps. We survived. The men in my family were descendants of the last war chief of the Ponca, Dandenachuge, who my son is named for. There's thunder where he walks. My brothers were all part of the Wounded Knee Resistance. My sons were in leadership positions in Standing Rock. And our people have continued to understand that the relationship that we have with the earth, with the land, with the waters, and all of those relatives we mentioned are part of the understanding of what is going to carry us out of this crisis that you all call climate change. We were told by our spiritual leaders that there would become a time of purification, where our Mother Earth would purify herself. And she's doing so with the melting of the polar ice caps has become this wild movement of the jet streams that is causing weather to become unpredictable, larger tornadoes, more hurricanes, wildfires, and droughts. The sacred beaver are beginning to dam up certain areas in order to purify them. All of these things have been predicted. And at that time, they told us, at the meeting of the Condor and the Eagle, at the time of purification, the Red Nations would be the ones to rise up and teach how to live in harmony with all that is again. And we've partnered all around the world with the indigenous peoples, and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's difficult to help people to understand that the commodification of the sacred is not acceptable. You can't do carbon trading and pretend that the wind doesn't blow the pollution from where it's killing our people in a form of environmental genocide, after the genocidal processes have already been put on our backs, after 5 treaties with the Ponca people, after more treaties with other nations. And those are a federal government to government relationship that have been abrogated every single time. And when those, we now use the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People to help hold up some of the remaining sovereignty that we have. But we are also beginning to understand that if you have laws that are man-made laws, and you have failed in your trust responsibility in 100% of the ways that you promised that you would upkeep them, then we will begin to do laws within our territories that not only protect us as a people and all living things as a result of that, but also you, our neighbors. And within the Ponca tradition and caring for all, not just ourselves, not for the individual, I'm sure our chief here would much rather be at home, kicking back and growing his own little garden, but he's thinking in a broader scope, because that's the way we were taught. We live for all of our relations. We live for the generations to come. And there is a certain point that we are asking for our neighbors to pay attention to what we're doing by creating statutes and laws within our sovereign territory. And it doesn't even matter if we're in our territory, we're still going to do this. It might be in the cities that we live in, because you all have come onto our shores and invited yourselves to the territory that we have inhabited. And we've welcomed you and continue to do so. We'll show you how to grow the food. We'll tell you that carbon trading is a false solution and carbon zero is a joke. We'll tell you that this water is sacred and without her, we all die. And we'll tell you that there are ways forward that we can align natural law with human law. One of those ways that we're choosing within the Ponca territory is to recognize the rights of nature. If you all were sitting back during the time of COVID, maybe you looked out your window and you saw the birds. Maybe you watched the wind blow, maybe the water was flowing, maybe the rain was happening. All of those things were living within the natural structure that was set up by the great mystery. Only man has broken the law and strayed wildly from the natural law that has always been in place. And in doing so, he has endangered his species. You and I, us humans, if we don't get ourselves back into alignment with the natural laws, then we could put ourselves in the same place as the lemmings and continue to race towards that cliff and jump off and not be here, because the earth won't miss us. She is our mother. and we respect her and we love her, and she nurtures and cares for us and all living things in the best way possible. But if she has to choose between one species and millions of other species, she might have to let us go so that those millions of other species can continue in a harmonic way. And so we have things that we've put into place called, one is a statute called the Rights of Nature, saying that all other things have lived within the natural laws and we need to protect them. We, this week, will be recognizing the rights of the rivers with the guardianship of women, the Women's Society, to bring into court if necessary in a point of good standing to represent the river as she is polluted by the fossil fuel people. That has happened with the Wanganui River in New Zealand. It's happened with the Snake River on the Nez Perce territory. The people around Lake Erie, hundreds of thousands, were trying to recognize the rights of Lake Erie. And by creating these policies, these laws, and by pushing those in the governmental place that are call themselves decision makers, we're capable of realigning the laws that need to happen. And so Rights of Nature has a place within municipalities. It has a place within your personal territory. It has a place within the global aspect of humanity. There is an organization called the Global Alliance on the Rights of Nature. And we're in the process of creating an Indigenous council there from all of the Indigenous people around the world to see how in our various territories we might be able to lift this recognition up. It's not giving nature rights. It is simply recognizing that we as human beings are not protecting nature. We are nature protecting itself. Internalize that. Internalize that concept. We are nature in the process of protecting itself. And I could go on for a bit, but that's how us matriarchs are. I thank you for your time and your attention, your caring for the generations to come. From the bottom of my heart, Sha.